poor dad was a very good man. For Japanese, he was 6'4", very smart, academic genius. But he always said to me, go to school, get good grades, get a job and work hard, save money. And my rich dad said, well, if you want to be rich, that's not the way you do it. And instead of working for money, my rich dad taught me how to have money work hard for me.
My father was the head of education, PhD, all that stuff. I go home and ask him, I said, why don't we learn about money in school? And he looked at me and says, because the government doesn't let us teach that subject. The government tells us what we can teach and what we can't teach. And I thought that was strange. And I said, but aren't we going to school to learn about money? He says, no, your job is to get a job. I said, but you get a job to earn money. He goes, no, you're supposed to just get a job. I went, no. Isn't the purpose of a job to earn money? He goes, you're correct. I said, so why don't I just learn about money? I can skip the job part, This gap between the rich and everybody else is reaching critical proportions. And I think one of the biggest crises is the young people. Today's young unemployed become tomorrow's unemployable. They lose valuable jobs, training skills. But that's where the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad started. And finally, through persistence, my rich dad started teaching me about money on one condition. And that condition was he would never pay me. He says, the moment I pay you, you think like an employee. He says, that's the trap. Entrepreneurs work for free. And now I'm 9 years old, my head's going cracking in half. He says, you never want a paycheck. You understand that, kid? I said, okay, I got it. And he says, well, how do I make money? He says, that's what entrepreneurs figure out. So my financial education began with a game of Monopoly. We all know the formula, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. So when I was 9 years old until I was about 20, Rich Dad and I and son would play Monopoly. And that's how I learned to become a rich man. So the reason it works is this is the cone of learning. It was created by a man named Professor Edgar Dale. And in 1969, he came up with the cone of learning, and he said, this is how human beings are designed to learn. Notice the worst way to learn is by reading. And the second worst way is lecture, listening to boring teachers. That's why I was never at school. Anyway, that's not really, I was there, but anyway. And then what you guys are doing here is you're looking at pictures, watching a movie. That's why TED Talks works. But also, the second best way is called simulation. Simulation is where you get to make your mistakes. You get to make your mistakes after mistakes. You just make mistakes. See, human beings learn by making mistakes, except in school, you make mistakes, you're considered stupid. In business, you make a mistake, you're fired, and you make a mistake in business, you're a failure. So a person's got to find a place to make mistakes. In scientists like Edison, it was a laboratory. So the reason I learned a lot was I made mistakes playing Monopoly. That's how I learned so much. And today I play Monopoly in real life. My wife and I have over 10,000 units, several hotels, golf courses, and oil wells. But that's the game. Once you learn it in your brain by playing games, simulations are the way you learn. So you practice. You make mistake after mistake after mistake. Like a golfer makes a mistake after mistake after mistake, then they turn pro. But the reason a lot of people are not rich, they think mistakes make you stupid. It's criminal. A baby cannot learn to walk unless they fall down. Can't learn to ride a bicycle until you fall off the bicycle. So that's where our school system's letting us down. A lot of people get financial advice from outsiders. If maybe a financial planner, a stockbroker, a real estate broker, but they're not on the inside of the deal. And one of the reasons I like being an entrepreneur and being a real estate guy is I'm always trading from the inside. I know the deal. I'm part of the deal. I am the deal, But the average person who buys like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, and saves money, they're outsiders. They have no idea what's going on between them and the real world of inside. So Jim Rickards and Nomi Prinz, they were with, Jim was with the CIA, long-term capital management, the Pentagon, and they're the inside on what's going on with money. Nomi Prinz was with Solomon and Lehman Brothers and Goldman Sachs. They're insiders. And I was this little guy on the outside trying to figure out, what are those guys doing? How are it's almost like, what's the wizard doing? How is the wizard pulling these handles and all this? And we're all outside jumping around doing as they tell us. You should save money. Okay, I'll save money. You should buy stocks. Okay, I'll buy stocks. You should put some money in bonds. Okay, I'll buy. And I said, there's a wizard in there. I want to know who that wizard is. Most important words in money are basic. There's only 4: assets, liabilities, cash flow. That's it. That's where financial literacy starts. Assets, liabilities, and cash flow. You understand those 4 words basically, then you can build your vocabulary. Money has a language, but it's not taught in school. It's taught job security versus being an entrepreneur. Look for job security instead of go for financial freedom. It's somebody should take care of you instead. I'm going to take care of other people. As an entrepreneur, I have thousands of employees. That's my job. To create other jobs, give them a safe life.
How does a 9-year-old kid in Hawaii, a poor kid, get to this point?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't poor by most people's standards, but I came from a family with a poor attitude, if you know what I mean. Because rich, poor, middle class, poverty starts with a fundamental attitude. And this here is very simply it's income, expense, asset, liabilities. Poor dad always said, go to school and get a high-paying job. The problem with education, they teach you to be employees. Rich dad taught me to be an entrepreneur, acquiring assets. 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. Assets are very simple. You can plant an apple seed, and an apple seed grows into a tree. You harvest the apples. You sell the apples. You reinvest your profits, and you keep building an orchard. That's how you get rich. Or a friend of mine, when he was in high school, his grandma gave him some chickens. Those chickens laid eggs. He sold the eggs and reinvested it. And when he was 45, I think he sold his business. He was selling 10 million eggs a day to Costco and Walmart. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to build assets. Just buy a couple of chickens.
He says
that the moment you accept a paycheck, your brain goes dead. You just got paid. He says, as long as you're hungry, you'll think. And he was a great, great teacher. So today when people ask me what I do, they know me as the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I just say I play Monopoly. So I own greenhouses, I own big hotels, I own oil wells, golf courses, businesses. I'm just playing Monopoly. That's all I do. So number 1 is assets. Number 2 is liabilities, cash flow. These are liabilities. The reason the poor and middle class grow poor is because they think their house is an asset. If you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I said several things. Savers are losers, and your house is not an asset. This came out in 1997 and 2007. The subprime market crashed, and tens of millions of people throughout the world found out their house was a liability. Look, if you use the wrong word to describe the wrong issue, you will always be stupid and broke. So don't call a liability an asset. And that's why so many people are broke. They're using the wrong words. The words become flesh. Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge, but knowledge empowers imagination. And what most people lack is real business knowledge.